about what we value most, and the ability to be reflective about our actions and our lives. But what about communities? What about congregations, denominations, governments, and societies?
Yes. So what about Unitarian Universalist Association congregations? What about Unitarian Universalism as a denomination? What about the governance of the UUA? That is the UUA administration that Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray presides over, and the UUA Board of Trustees is also supposed to have oversight over. What about them? There are huge problems of integrity. I haven't gone into very much in the way of specifics talking right now, but I'll give one glaring example, and it's what I've been working on recently. There's many issues, but one in particular was the fact that in June of 2012, the Reverend Dr. Peter Morales-led Unitarian Universalist Association authorized its Canadian attorney, Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors Defamation Lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in a cease and desist demand letter, the purpose of which was to try to intimidate me into taking down blog posts that told the truth about pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers and a Unitarian Universalist layperson who, to the best of my knowledge, is not a minister. So this was June 1st of 2012. This arrived in my email inbox. I had a PDF attachment of the actual cease and desist demand letter that I was later served with by a bailiff. In fact, I went to the bailiff's office to be served because I was very, very happy to receive that cease and desist demand letter, because it just proved how outrageously hypocritical the UUA was and the extreme and foolish lengths that it would go to try to conceal pedophilia and rape, to say nothing of other clergy sexual misconduct or even non-sexual clergy misconduct. So when that happened, within days I made it very clear to the UUA that I expected it to formally withdraw that false accusation of blasphemous libel. That's the legal term, blasphemous libel. They were accusing me of, and that's a criminal act, by the way. If they had had me charged and I'd been convicted, which is pretty well impossible, barring severe problems with the court, I could have faced a jail term of up to 2 years. But they never proceeded further than the cease and desist demand letter, because I effectively showed them how outrageously false it was in my initial responses. And I said very clearly, you must formally withdraw this accusation. You must publicly apologize for this accusation. You must disclose the truth about just how many Unitarian Universalist ministers are in fact guilty of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. That's a line from the cease and desist demand letter. Well, guess what? They never did. And I'm still waiting. And I've made it very, very clear to the UUA, including Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray, that until such a time as the UUA formally withdraws that false accusation of blasphemous libel, I will consider the UUA to still be accusing me. They must formally withdraw it. They must apologize for it. If they do not do that, as far as I'm concerned, they're still accusing me. And that's how I am governing myself, shall we say. So let's continue with the audio here.
Just as for an individual, integrity in community is a measure of the alignment between what a community, organization, or society says about what it values, and its actions, intentions, behaviors, and policies. So a lack of integrity would be when a group's actions and practices violate or negate who they say they are.
Well, the Unitarian Universalist Association says that it's an organization, a religion, which opposes blasphemy laws. The UUA has signed on to amicus briefs stating that blasphemy laws are unconstitutional. The second principle of Unitarian Universalism calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The fourth principle of Unitarian Universalism calls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So Unitarian Universalists are supposed to engage in a free and, keyword, responsible search for truth and meaning. They're supposed to practice justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. unfortunately falsely accusing a clergy abuse whistleblower of blasphemous libel, the criminal act of blasphemous libel, for blogging about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, such as Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, to name one of them. And we'll also name Richard Buell, Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein's pedophile rapist, First Parish Norwell parishioner, because I wrote about him, and I think they lumped him in with Unitarian Universalist ministers, because he was the only person who I described specifically as a pedophile on the Emerson Avenger blog. I use the term pedophile rapist because that's exactly what he was. He was charged, tried, and convicted of the forcible rape of a neighbor's daughter who was somewhere between 6 and 9 years old when the rapes took place, and also a female family member who I have reason to believe was probably a granddaughter or grandniece based on the age differences between him and her at the time the rapes took place. So I blogged about this. He was the only person who I described as a pedophile, although there certainly are some Unitarian Universalist ministers who have been convicted of sexual abuse of children, pedophilia, if you want to use that term. There were, even when I was blogging back in 2006, there's more since. So this is a huge discrepancy between what the Unitarian Universalist religious community claims as its values and its actual actions. So this is a serious breach of integrity. And Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray has known about this for years now, even before she was elected as president of the UUA. I'm noticing my sensor's overheating, and we're getting to the end of a half-hour segment here, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon. But essentially, Susan Frederick-Gray, who is now president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, has known for some years now, since at least 2016, if not earlier, about this false accusation of blasphemous libel, about the fact that I expect the UUA to withdraw that accusation and apologize for it. She has done nothing, absolutely nothing. Possibly she has made some efforts, to address this issue, but in effective terms, she's done nothing. She has been, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't have inside information in terms of what she has said and done necessarily. So the fact remains, however, is that when she was elected, even before she was elected, I said, you need to deal with this, since the previous administrations didn't do it, this is now your responsibility. And I made it clear. You need to withdraw the accusation. You need to apologize for it. I don't mean her personally, but the UUA. The UUA must formally withdraw that accusation. It must publicly apologize for it in such a way that Unitarian Universalists are aware of what happened and how the UUA regrets that. And they must disclose the truth about how many Unitarian Universalist ministers are in fact guilty of pedophilia and rape, and perhaps some other serious clergy sexual abuse, anything of a criminal nature. And I can assure you there's more than just a small handful of cases. So that's it. I'm still waiting for Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray to show some integrity. I'm still waiting for the Unitarian Universalist Association to show some integrity. I'm still waiting for the UUA Board of Trustees to show some integrity on this issue and other issues where they have so far shown an incredible lack of integrity. So let's see here. What's the time running here? Yeah, there's a few minutes left. My sensor's overheating. I think, let's just keep going a little bit. Let's see what the audio has for us. Seems to have jammed up.
What about as a country?
What about as a country?
What money can't buy, the moral limits of markets. Harvard professor Michael Sandel says a significant problem in the U.S. is that our political discussions no longer really grapple with conversations about values. What does it mean to live a good life? What does the common good look like? What are our civic responsibilities? What is essential for the protection of liberty and democracy? What does equality look like?
Okay, so they moved it into the political, the secular, but what about Unitarian Universalism? What does the common good for Unitarian Universalism look like? What are the civic responsibilities of Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray and other top-level Unitarian Universalists to Unitarian Universalists, but not just Unitarian Universalists, the general public? Covering up and hiding clergy sex abuse doesn't look to me like they're really living up to their civic responsibilities. So what else here? What is essential for the protection of liberty and democracy? Well, I can assure you that falsely accusing of blasphemous libel in an effort to conceal pedophilia and rape is absolutely the antithesis of protection of liberty. And it's very anti-democratic too, as far as I'm concerned. So we could go on with this, but I'm noticing we're running out of time on the clock here. I'm noticing the sensor's still overheating. Well, let's continue a little. We still got a minute or two.
The heated and often vitriolic debates of contemporary politics are a reflection of how really empty they are. Slogans and sound bites and personal attacks do not make room for real discussions of values and how to protect them and how to live them.
Okay, so yes, slogans and sound bites and personal attacks. Well, I can assure you that Unitarian